Welcome. It is Thursday, September 3rd, and this is the season finale for Mediavine's Summer of Live Season 3. If I had a party popper, I would pop it, totally. I'm Jenny Guy. I'm the Director of Marketing and your host throughout our journey during the most bizarre summer of all time. So we did it. You did it. We did it. We all did it. And even though the news headlines have been something out of a science fiction novel, that has not stopped industry experts from sharing their wealth of knowledge with our audience. We've talked affiliate marketing, Google Analytics, video, Gutenberg, social media. We've done it all and more this summer, all with the goal of helping you grow your business and income during these challenging times and beyond. So if you have caught any of our episodes so far this summer, tell us what you've seen. Tell us which ones. Tell us what useful tidbits you've grabbed, what episode it was, what guest you loved. Tell us in the comments. We're here for it. But today, the matter of the day is we are rounding out our summer programming with a big, huge, broad concept that my guest is going to break down into actionable steps. What is that concept? How do you make a business which began with your idea? It's inherently tied to your expertise, your personality. It basically is you for all intents and purposes. Scalable. All right, meet Beth Santos. She's going to help us. She is the founder and CEO of Wanderful, a global community and lifestyle brand that specializes in helping women travel the world. We all love that. Wanderful reaches a diverse audience of over 100 million each year through chapter events in 50 cities, an international home sharing network, global summits and small group trips, a thriving membership community, and dynamic online content and forums. She is the creator and host of the Women in Travel Summit, a leading event for women travel creators and industry happening on 2 continents each year, and co-founder of #AtTheTable, a national dinner series and community for female founders. Love that. She is a graduate of the Kellogg School of Management and Wellesley College and is an acclaimed thought leader in entrepreneurship and travel. She lives in Boston. Welcome back to Mediavine Live, Beth.
Thanks, Jenny. Hi, everybody. Great to see all of you here.
I'm so glad you're with us. Our last conversation when we had Beth here the last time was that one we had on diversity and inclusion of Teal Talk last fall. We are so happy to have her back again to share more of her action items and expertise. If you have got questions for Beth or myself, please drop them in the comments. And let's get started. I'm going to start like we always do, which is asking Beth to tell us more about her story and why she originally proposed this topic, which she did for our Baltimore conference, as we have had all of our sessions this summer have made virtual. So why does From the Me to We resonate so personally with you, Beth?
Yeah, so great seeing everybody here again. And I'm just seeing some of the comments too of people being like, I've been waiting months for this one. And I'm like, all right, Jen, we're going to take care of business for you today. So let me tell you a little bit about my story and where I came from. It was about 11 years ago in 2009 that I was 22 years old, living off the coast of West Africa in a country called Sao Tome and Principe. So this is where the story begins, is I was a recent graduate from college, moved to a country that I had never heard of before and decided to live there, ended up teaching at a middle school. And it was during that time that I really experienced what it was being a woman traveling on her own, really for the first time. I had studied abroad before, but I'd been involved in a program. This was literally, taking your suitcase, plopping yourself in a completely new place and getting adjusted. And I realized very quickly, not only that there are a lot of women out there in the world that are experiencing this, but also that we're really treated as a niche. There's not a lot of information for women. Even today, I'm talking 11 years ago, but even today, there's not a lot of information when we look up women in travel. If you Google a traveler, it's not usually a woman, although that's starting to change. Women actually make 80% of the travel decisions. And yet, even still a couple of years ago, I was on a radio show and I said, yeah, I focus on women in travel. And the radio show host went, oh, that's a nice niche. And I was like, no, actually, it's not a niche. It's the majority market. But thanks, that's really nice of you. So I think I was in this place where I did not have the resources that I need. I didn't know where to find birth control, how to manage a different gender structure and social structure than I'd been used to growing up. And I had a lot of questions. And so I just started to write about it. And that's actually where my blog started. It was a blog on blogpost.com.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go girl.blogspot.com. And I just started writing about my own. Oh my gosh. And back then, for those of you, I'm curious actually if any of you were blogging, pre 2010 and before. Blogging was a different world then. It was live journaling. I mean, and if you go back, I will even challenge you to go back into the archives of Wanderful. You will see stories that probably should have been deleted a long time ago of like me hanging out with my friends and what the day was like. And that's the kind of stuff we wrote about. It wasn't really quite journalism there, and it wasn't really quite a business. But so that was my story. It was my experience. It was my perspective. It was me sharing the things that I was learning, the questions that I was having with the world. And over time, when I realized that I was actually not the only person experiencing this, that actually, again, 80% of decisions are made by women, that women are 2/3 out of every traveler in the US, then I started realizing that this concept was so much bigger than what I had just been addressing. And so I came to a turning point a couple years later where I thought about how, I'd been kind of building this online community through my readership. But actually, I'm seeing all these comments. Yes, Michelle had a Blogspot blog. Sarah,
all
yes,
these
Blogspot.
people
Lois blog. Oh my gosh, I love everybody who. Let's bring it back, guys.
Angel Fire.
Angel Fire. Oh yeah, I love that. Yes. So then I started to realize that if my mission is to really help women travel the world, there's so much more I can do than just writing about it. Because especially in the space of travel, that information changes all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You write a play of a place that you went to, and then somebody else goes there 2 years later, it's not there anymore. So now you want to make sure you're providing really accurate information in real time. And I realized that I needed to take what I was building not off the blog, but in adding additional parts to the blog as well. So we started hosting chapters. Now we have 50 chapters all around the world. Our goal is to really create this live network of women for whom you can land in any airport around the world and have instant access to somebody who can guide you, instant access to somebody who can say, here's the bus you should take, get this cup of coffee, it's so good, and we have, I mentioned, Jenny, you mentioned, I didn't mention, we have things like a home sharing network. So we've built out these products and services, which is a lot different. I know we'll talk a little bit about business development in general. It's a lot different from how a lot of traditional businesses are built. So the from me to we thing came up because a few years in, as I was building all these different things to address the central question of how can we support women, people would ask me, I would say, we all the time. And people would be like, well, who's we? And I'd be like, oh, well, obviously I'm not doing this by myself. I can't,
Right.
But the whole time, the whole blog, the whole brand had been mine, and people had associated it with me. My mom called it a magazine up until literally about a year ago. She stopped calling it a magazine. Thanks, Mom. Yep. But I realized that there was something that I was doing in communicating, but also in the way I was talking about the company that was different than I had started in the beginning. In the beginning, it was literally me. I'm literally by myself writing. And there had been a transition over time where actually this business had grown far beyond anything that I could have created. And it was all through building a team, thinking more about the problem that we were solving rather than my own experiences, and really taking a business angle. So that's kind of the journey that we took into where we are today.
And I love that, and hearing that it's about building a team, but you're also really specifically talking about a mindset. Oh my goodness, mindset shift. Whew. And you were moving from a blog to a business, and you were moving your readers, because a lot of people will think that first transition happened when you stopped thinking about your blog as a Blogspot blog, where one of our co-founders now is saying that she had a live journal that she had to stop writing on because her now husband's ex-girlfriend started trolling it. So, I mean, when we get beyond those very real problems for Blogspot blogs and moving into monetizing that content, that is one shift. But you're talking about going beyond monetizing content to monetizing influence, which I thought was a really interesting concept. So tell me a little bit more about that shift from readers to customers, and from monetizing your content to monetize your influence.
Well, and if you think about it, that's right now your blog is a community. That's what you've built. That's why you have readers. It's not just, for the most part, it's not just a place that people are hopping into from time to time. Your dedicated readers are coming back to your content regularly. They're looking at you as a thought leader. They're looking for your site as a space for them, as another home for them. So you have already created that community in a lot of ways. And so a lot of that mental shift does happen where you stop thinking about them just as readers, just as people for whom the only thing that they're doing is going to your site and reading it, to why are they coming to my site in the first place? What is the thing that my site is solving for them? And in my case, it was actually two things. It was first, of course, the tips and advice and that kind of thing. But secondarily, what I learned along the way is that a lot of the women who were reading our blog were reading it not because they necessarily were dying to know what somebody's experience was like when they visited, Chile for the first time. It was because they knew what it felt like to travel alone, and they wanted to get that feeling again through somebody else's experiences. They wanted to know that somebody else had felt that way before. They wanted to feel validated. And that's where things shifted into not just readers, but community members. And then when you start looking at this as we're solving the problem of people looking for support and sisterhood and information and advice, but also someone who can push them forward, then you start thinking about what are the other ways that I can achieve this for them through other channels. So then, this idea of readers becomes more of this idea of customers. Everybody who's coming to your blog is a potential, if not current already, customer. Yep. And the types of revenue that you're bringing in aren't necessarily just going to be your blog and the content that you're writing. It's all the things after, so I'm sure many of you have moved into this space now of creating ebooks or building courses or, doing something else. Those are products that you are selling to customers. And I think what's really interesting is, I think a little bit better now, but in the very beginning, when we launched, so in 2014, we launched the Women in Travel Summit, or WITS. It was literally the probably one of the wackiest decisions that we've ever made. It was October of 2013, and we went, we really need a conference to help other people go through what we're going through, which is this transition, this me to we transition, this blog to business shift. And so I say it was October because we had the conference in the following March. So we had 5 months to plan a conference.
Sure.
Sure, why not? Of course, plenty of time. I mean, who knows? Yeah. So it went off without a hitch, actually. We had 200 bloggers join us. We did it at the Palmer House Hilton in Chicago, beautiful space. But what was interesting is then, and even for many years, we would say to our attendees, you're small business owners. You're not just bloggers. You're really building businesses. And that's why I like using creators so much more, is because you're not just, I don't want to say just a blogger, but that's not the only thing that you're doing. You're actually cultivating a presence. You're monetizing that, the problems that you're solving for these customers. You're creating resources and opportunities for them to learn more, to connect with other people. And in that way, you've actually built an ecosystem now. And so take that ownership, that you are a business owner, that you are an entrepreneur, because that's going to be taking you even further to have that mindset shift of, I'm not just writing for myself, I'm writing as a way to bring together people who can then benefit from some of these other things that I'm building for them.
And I love that you're saying that. And I think that's so important because we're talking so much about mind shift. Oh my God. Mindset shift.
Mind shit.
Mind shit. I mean, mind shit. It's 2020. We're all in a mind shit right now. But that owning the fact that they're your readers, they're coming to you for that expertise, own the fact that it's an ecosystem, own the fact that they're there for more, and that this is your business. And so you should be trying to have those separate revenue streams while still solving that central problem that makes them love you in the first place.
Exactly.
And I love that. So what do you mean when we start talking about scale? Because that is one of our favorite words at Mediavine. Our CEO talks about scale constantly. So what does it truly mean to build a business that's bigger than yourself? And why does it matter? Because I think a lot, #mindshit. Yes.
Yes, Dennis.
That's the truth. And it encapsulates the year. So what does it mean to really be able to scale?
Well, I think there are some new definitions that are coming out in the world. We have, you might have all heard this phrase, A freelancer makes their money while they're awake. An entrepreneur makes their money while they're sleeping. And it's interesting because, and I've been up to this point saying like, yeah, you're all small business owners, you're all entrepreneurs. But actually the definition of even entrepreneurship now, I think creators kind of fit in the middle, where you don't need to be, building like a brick and mortar building with having 50 full-time employees to be running your business. There are so many things that we're able to do to get us to that point. And we'll talk about that. I don't want to like dive in too deep. But the idea here is that when you're going, so it's not just about, taking your blog into a business and monetizing it. It's also about focusing on the person who first created this business, you, person whose face is the face of the, I'm kind of interchanging blog and company, the blog, the company, the person whose voice, you were the one that was attracting people from the first place, right? And you have to take ownership of that too, right? And recognize like, yeah, people, are coming because they love how you're saying something, what you're saying, why you're saying it. But now moving into the space of me to we, moving into scale, is moving into a company that can go on without you. Now you're going into a place of, can I actually build something that speaks to the values through which, for which I started this business, that say the things I want to say, but I can actually take myself out of the equation and have it keep running. So I was saying, some of you are saying, yes, I am not interested in having this business go on without me. I want to be the figurehead, and that's okay. But if you say I want to be the figurehead forever, remember, none of us is around forever. Whether that is your life, whether that is your interest in running this, whether that is, I know a blogger whose business was, the name of her business was titled after her age. And then her age changed because she got older. And
funny how that happens.
Funny how that happens.
Yeah.
And, thinking about even those little things of what happens when your audience is coming for content that you no longer resonate with. What happens if you decide that you want to do something else? Maybe you're like, I'm so Zoom fatigued. I want to go and like make goat's milk cheese and, live in Vermont, which I've definitely thought about multiple times. Maybe something happens to you. There are countless cases, I'm sure, for all of your industries. You've seen this in the travel industry. There have been a number of cases I can count off my hand where the person has passed away. And what happened to their blog after they passed away? Because the whole blog was built on them and their experiences. And I'm not necessarily saying like shame on them. I think everyone has to make a decision for yourself. But if this is something that you'd like to see take its own form, there's no better time to start thinking about those things of how can you make the machine go on without you. I'll say one last thing to this point. So in 2017, I mentioned WITS, our conference. In 2016, September of 2016, I found out an interesting fact. I was pregnant. Turns out I was due the day of our conference, which was to take place in Milwaukee. Yes, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. If you all remember, I live in Boston. So that was a little bit of a logistical nightmare. It was a little bit problematic. I was going, okay, I need to give birth the same day as going to a conference halfway across the United States. How am I going to make this work? And I remember very clearly, think about this for a minute, all of you, men especially might be a little bit harder of a mental jump, but, think about this. If something like that happened where there is an inevitable, you can't just be like, hey, can we reschedule that? No. It's not possible. And I was literally thinking in my head things like, okay, I could get an apartment in Milwaukee. I could move there for a month beforehand. And then I could just be there, and then, and then I'll give birth in Milwaukee. But then, you can't fly for 3 weeks with an infant. So I would also have to live there for 3 weeks after I gave birth. Okay, so is it really worth it to live in Milwaukee for 2 months just that I can run this conference? I literally had these thoughts in my head. And I remember calling, this is like the me mindset, right? So then I called my advisory board and I said, very apologetically, I said, I'm pregnant. I don't know what to do about that because we've got this conference coming up. I'm really sorry. I hope this didn't mess with you. Like, I'm literally thinking about them. Like, I'm sorry. I hope this didn't mess with your schedule.
My body and life.
Right. And I remember they said to me, they paused and they all said, congratulations.
Yes.
And they said, Beth, this is your opportunity to see if this business will go on without you, if this business has wings, because now you have 9 months or 8 or 7 months at that point to engineer a conference, to engineer a company that you literally, I'm not talking about like, you help from time to time or whatever, you literally cannot be involved in for multiple months. You have to step away and we'll see if we can do it. And running, so of course, that's when I turned to the team that I'd been building. And I said to them, you guys need to run this conference. I'm not even going to be there. I will not be anywhere. You can't even call me. If there's a problem, you won't even be able to call me. I will literally be in labor at that time. I will not be interested in your phone calls. And that's when I think the shift actually really finalized. Is it went from, just calling us we over the years to I need to actually engineer a company that I could leave at any point and it's moving on without me. And the voice is still there and the community is still there and the readership is still there. And people still trust everyone the same way they trusted me. And that is a really scary moment for any person. I say business owner, blogger, especially blogger, because we're talking about how a lot of this is based on who you are. And you have to make that shift. So that's what scaling is. In this case, in the way we're talking about it today, that's where you're saying, I'm going to take this business and I'm going to make it into a machine that operates. Whereas I put the coin in, the machine runs. And it does everything that it needs to do. I don't have to keep adding to it. I don't have to keep perfecting the recipe. I can just, not that I'm calling my team a recipe, I love you guys, but I can just let this system go so that if anything happens, if something happens to me, if I decide I want to move on, if I decide I want to sell this, if I decide I want to go make goat cheese, if I decide that my interest is different, then you can.
And as I think scary is definitely what you said. We have Leah Garcia who just said, I've been working on this exact process all year with the same deadline in mind, having kids. It's really resonating. It is also, as the word that we have officially coined for this live, got to be a big mind shit because it's scary. It's real scary. So speaking about the audience, and Leah perfectly segued us here, who are the people that need to be having this conversation? Who needs to be thinking in these terms? And is it ever too late to think in these terms?
No, it's never too late. Unless, the too late is when that thing happens and then you do step away and that's it. I mean, I think certainly there's a process and that's important. The thing that I think is very important. So during all of this, I went to business school. I was kind of in the nonprofit world for many years before that. And, love to the nonprofit world, love to the for-profit world. They're very different. And I studied entrepreneurship. And the thing that we talk about in entrepreneurship is, what is the problem you're trying to solve? And, kind of doing your MVP, your minimum viable product. Well, for me, I couldn't just start fresh because I already had an existing community. Yep. And I already had an existing readership that was going to respond to anything I threw out there. So while I had, my peers who were kind of starting completely new businesses from scratch and they're going, okay, I'm going to, create some super basic MVP or super basic prototype. I'm going to put it out there and see what people say. I was going, I can't put out a basic prototype because my audience is going to respond very negatively to that.
Right.
They're going to go, why is this person giving us stuff that's not, you've got a following at that point. And so I think,
we're here.
All right, like, why are you asking me this survey of how much I like to travel? Like, haven't we been together for 5 years now? So, yeah. So in that way, it became, having to think about this as a live experiment that you're doing in real time. And so this is like a very long way of answering your very brief question. But the question being, about like, when is the latest to do it? This is a process. If you're planning on walking away tomorrow, it's too late. If you're planning on walking away, a week from now, it's too late. And I'm using walking away to mean, any of the examples that I give.
Yes.
but because you're working with a live group, and because of that live group, you need to make sure that every time you bring somebody new in, every time you introduce something that you're not running, that your community has to feel comfortable with that, because now it is looking at other people as voices and other people as thought leaders, and not just you. And I think that's great. Some of us are going to love that. Some of us don't like giving away that kind of ownership and that control. It's hard. But if this is something that you want to go on, you have to make it so that the people who are live in your community right now are trusting other people. That when you post, a classic example for any of you who run a Facebook group, maybe you've seen sometimes that you post in the Facebook group, and because you're the person who created it, you've got like 50 comments easily that come in. But then you have an intern come in and they post.
And your intern's feelings are crushed because they got 5 comments on your Facebook group.
The audience, your Facebook group members, whoever, they didn't know who your intern was. They didn't know that they were affiliated with your blog. They didn't know that you had asked them to post this. They didn't know that they were supposed to respond to this person the same way they respond to you. So your community, your audience, your customers also need to be integrated into this shift as much as you are integrated out of it, because they need to know who to be looking at. And if they're not looking at you anymore, then you better make sure that they feel real comfortable with the people that are coming in. And it can happen. I'm not saying like this is so hard. It can happen. And this is just a process. So I would give it I guess the best I've done is about 8 months. I think 8 months is probably a pretty good time to get started. But this is really a whole process for every time you do something with your business, you have to be thinking about it from this perspective. So this is kind of not just a one-time shift. This is kind of a lifetime of your business decision that you're making.
Leah Garcia says, I am struggling so much with this. How to introduce my audience to my team without losing some of them, because it's such a big shift. Navigating that change seems so incredibly difficult. I know this wasn't on the doc that we had worked on together, but Beth, I want to hear a little bit more about how you choose that team that you trust, and then how you basically put the mantle on them with respect to your audience.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about hiring, because obviously in order to build something that goes on without you, you need other people to be able to run it, or lots of automations, which we also do as well. Technology is great. Having people from Upwork, great. I think, that's when we talk about freelancer versus creator versus entrepreneur. I think there are so many online tools now that help us build things that don't necessarily rely on us. But I do think you need other faces that are orchestrating things that your audience, especially because your relationship is so personal as a blogger, as a content creator, your relationship with your audience is so personal that you need to make sure that your audience is building an equally, or at least, close to equally personal relationship with your team. So that is a process. And I think, first of all, hiring, I will say, you don't have to think about this as a 50-story brick and mortar business that you're building with 5,000 employees full time. You can start really small. You can have people come in. There are tons of really, really talented freelancers out there who are really interested in putting in 10, 20 hours a week to help you with your business. And these are not, and I think the crowning moment of going from me to we is when your freelancers start using the word we. When your team starts using the word we, and people who are not even doing it full time are saying we, then you know that there has been an ownership. So first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that your team feels ownership of the business, of the process, that there is a share of values here. And I think that is that starts from day one. From day one, when you bring somebody on, you're talking to them not as I'm telling you what to do. You're talking to them from the perspective of, here's what we're working on and here's what we're trying to create. How are you contributing? What are your ideas? I've involved my team in strategy for the first time, and I'll have people who are like, I'm only here for 10 hours a week helping you with, nobody's ever asked me strategy. And I'm like, you don't have to give it. I'm not requiring it from you. But if you want to contribute to this conversation, come into our team meetings. We'd love to have you participate in this, because you are part of this business and you are part of the decisions. I think sometimes people be like, why is Beth always going back to her team to ask them? Because I am not making decisions without you all feeling on board and pumped about this, or at least us having a conversation about it. So I think before you can even get your audience into that, you have to make sure that the people that are working for you are actually working with you, that sometimes they disagree with you and sometimes they win that argument, that they can have control over the direction of your organization. And in order to build that trust, that's baby steps too. Again, start at 10 hours a week, start with a 30 to 60 day, maybe max 90-day contract. Just start there and say, let's see what it's like to work together. Because my personal belief is you do not know how somebody works with you until you actually start working together. So put on, a short period of time where you're actually working together, see how you operate, see how you work well, see how you're different, because you want everybody on your team to be different from everybody else, to have a different perspective. Bring them into the loop. And then once you have that comfort level, then you start don't introduce them to your audience until you feel ready, until you feel confident about that decision. Then start introducing them to your audience and bring them into the conversations, right? When you're talking about something, loop them in. Make sure that you do a nice introduction in your Facebook group, on your blog, in your community. When somebody asks you a question, say, you know who actually would know this? Sapphire knows this. Marissa knows this. Let's ask them instead, so that you're not the person with all the answers anymore. In fact, I think that's something that drives my community crazy, is that people will ask me questions assuming that I always know all of the answers, and I don't anymore. There are literally many, many things that I do not know the answer to about my own company. And I'll say, gosh, I don't know, but I can tell you who does know the answer to that. And they're like, this is your company. How do you not know the answer? And I went, I don't think Tim Cook knows about everything going on at Apple. There's no way that you can know everything. It's about trusting other people to make those choices for you. And so when you're introducing your community to it, making sure that they see that you don't have all the answers. You're not going to be the best person to reach out to all the time, because if you are the best person to reach out to all the time, they're not going to ask anybody else. They're only going to ask you. So, that shift takes a little while to create that comfort. And I think supporting them along the way is good. You don't have to throw them into the deep end and be like, why are you posting and only getting 5 comments on this blog or whatever? Help them along, engage them, show a face, do video, make sure that people see, I think make them, humanize them even more, and give them that ownership. Okay, I'm done. Sorry. I'm an expert monologuer.
No, you're fantastic. This is awesome. And I think that you're absolutely right in that you have to guide your audience in how to respond to them and respect them. And you lending your credence and your belief in them gives your audience freedom to believe and go to them when you're going to them publicly. Love that.
Yes. Well, and I'm looking at Leah's comment too, and where she's saying, how do you do it without alienating people who follow you for you? I think you really need to, so you have to get to a point of understanding, are they literally only following you because it's you? Because if you do leave, that's it. You're going to lose them. There's not another way around that. But if they're following you because you're quirky and, you're honest and you tell it like it is and you speak to them like they're people, those things you can cultivate in your business. Those qualities you can put into your business. The other thing that I would say is, just like you said, Jenny, is when you bring new people on, you're bringing them on because they add value in some way, because they're different from you, because they're offering something unique. And I think to showcase that to your community and say, what's really missing around here? Somebody with good puns. That's why I'm bringing Natasha in to run our social media, because she's got puns that you guys are going to love, and just to be able to introduce, like when you're inviting people to a party, and you're saying, I really want you to meet this person. You're going to love them because you love them, because you trust them. And because of that, your audience will see that trust and they'll go with it.
And that's fantastic. And having that trust in the people that you hire is so important and so crucial. And having them shine in ways that you don't. I love that idea that they're bringing different shades of. But the thing I wanted to pinpoint back into that is how you mentioned a key crucial step that was the very beginning of this process, which is figuring out why your audience is following you, so that is something you are clearly have identified and can make sure you don't lose sight of during the scaling process. How do you find out why your audience is following you, really?
Yeah, well, asking them never works. If any of you have tried,
People love
Entrepreneurship 101. Don't ask them. Yeah. No, but I think, well, and I think this is I think where you as a blogger really shine because, and you all know when you're creating content, it's a two-way street. I know it seems like it's a one-way street because you're the one writing the content, they're the one reading it, but their comments, their questions, the emails that they're bringing in, the things that they're saying in the Twitter chat, whatever, live, Instagram live, those are all contributing to this two-way street. And so I honestly don't think anybody knows your community better than you. I think the thing that's holding you back is you're too close and you need to take a step back and look at what you've built from a little bit more of a bird's eye view. And then you'll get a better sense. When I was, I talked about going to business school, and one of the first things in entrepreneurship they say is like, what is the problem you're trying to solve? And so you're always looking at this as like, for me, it wasn't, I didn't just say, gosh, I'm really hot one day, I'm going to cut the sleeves off of my shirt and make a t-shirt. Da da da! I made a business. It wasn't like that. The problem I was trying to solve was so deeply rooted in my own experiences that I couldn't even identify it. I was like, oh, the problem is that there's not enough information out there. And I don't know where to find birth control when I travel. And I don't know. And gender inequality. And,
here's my birth
pay.
And I don't know. And how do I solve? And your problem is not, yeah, of course. There's a lot.
What the problem is that we're trying to solve is loneliness, actually. That's the problem that we're trying to solve. The problem we're trying to solve is for people for whom travel is this, and the people who are part of Wanderful, travel is, and I know some of you are here, so I hope I'm speaking to you. If not, let's talk later. But travel is an essential part of who you are, and that's actually something that has really shown during quarantine is, when quarantine started happening, people started engaging with Wanderful even more, not because they were traveling more, but because they were traveling less and they missed it. And they really wanted to connect with other people who felt the same way. And, as women, the travel industry has alienated us in a lot of ways. There's not enough information out there. And for people who are always on the road, sometimes we're not making connections at home. We don't actually know a whole lot of people at home because we're not meeting them because we're somewhere else, right? We're not there. Yeah. We're missing the opportunity to talk about travel. We're missing the opportunity to meet with other people who have those travel experiences that we have. And I don't want to say like, everybody at Wanderful is lonely. I know everybody's going to hate me for saying that, but what we're missing is that sense of community and support from each other, from our industry, from ourselves, and that's what we're creating at Wanderful is these connections, and that's fueled by information. And so I think if you can really get at the root of what the problem is that you're solving, and it might not be something like I was hot and I cut my sleeves off my shirt and it became a t-shirt, like I said earlier. It could just be something like an emotion or an experience that made you feel a certain way. And those things you're only going to really learn through trial and error. What is working in your community? What do people respond really well to? What are the articles? You guys have really good data. What are the articles that people have been coming back to again and again and again? What are the things that people keep reading? Because those are going to be really key indicators of that. Those are all use cases. So those are your key indicators of what's actually working, and you've got to lean into that.
What I was going to say is I think that part of this discovering what audiences are looking for or what they are there for is figuring out what you're putting out. And I think that sometimes that can be a little bit difficult, like you said, because you're so close to it. So actually being intentional about the feeling you want people to have when they're on your site, when they're consuming your content, when they're on your social media. I encourage people, even when they're working on their about page, to write a bio for their blog, to think about, however it makes sense to you and you're able to articulate it. What actor would play your blog in the lifetime original film of your blog, of your site, of your content, of your brand? What is it? And knowing what you're actually putting out is a very powerful thing. And getting feedback from people who you trust. If that's what you're trying to do, are you doing it?
Yeah.
A big, so go, please.
No, I was just going to say, I think this is also a really good time to to actually bring in some of those traditional business practices that you might not have done when you were starting a blog, including identify who your customers are, do some customer profiling. And the best place to start, you can start with Google Analytics if you want real data. You can also just start with your head and think about who is the person. If I had to pick 4 different profiles, 4 different personas of people who are reading my site,
Avatars.
who are they? Right? Yeah. Who are they? What are they coming here for? Why? What speaks to them the most? Like, start identifying those things. And then other things that you might not have done, again, because it's always been you who's been driving the vision, you who's been driving everything. Try to put together a mission statement. Try to put together a vision statement. Put together, what are your goals for your organization? What are your key values? If you had to create a manual for, what you want your blog to be and what is the voice and who reads it and why do they come there and what do they get out of it, start writing that down. Because if you're all doing blogging, then you're writers, right? So you're going to get a lot out of just putting it to paper, putting it on your screen, right? Typing to screen. And seeing that and working through it. And I promise you, it's really hard. I don't want to make it sound like it's easy. No. Getting that stuff perfected is really hard, but it's also going to really help you as you're bringing in new people into your team, because now you're able to communicate, this is what our organization is about. This is what our company is about. This is what our blog is about. And they'll be able to see that too. And it helps with, it becomes onboarding documents. So the things that you're creating, in the beginning of starting a business, then end up being things that continue to fuel that business even long after you've sold it for $10 million to somebody else.
Congratulations, go make your goat cheese.
Yeah.
In the mountains or whatever it is that you want.
If only.
I mean, I'm all about it. We've had people that are talking. We had Eden said, I'm stuck in Los Angeles. Businesses are finally starting to open, but very slowly, definitely missing travel. I was supposed to be going to Wits, Poland next month. I can't wait to go next year. It's hard. It's so hard.
Yeah.
And we'll get back to it. It'll just take some time, but we will get there. And I know that people are grateful to have the space and the community that Wanderful is, to go and to express that longing and that missing and that loneliness and all that stuff. That's all very, very essential, especially now. So,
and I think for a lot of everyone watching too, I think the pandemic is actually, I will never say the pandemic is a blessing, but in many ways it gives us opportunities to look at, why are people coming back to us? What are they looking for in a time when they're not running around, traveling to other places, doing other things, busy with clubs, busy with hockey, whatever? Why are they coming back to me? Why are they spending time with me? And I think this is a really good opportunity, really critical time for you to actually examine your audience while you have the most of them, because people are online more than ever.
Very, very, very true. Love finding those glass half full moments. Okay. So Larisha had asked this, and we want to talk about this too, on this scaling, getting started. And the favorite part of every session that we pride ourselves on here is the action items, the tactics, the nuts and bolts. And it's a little bit different with this because it's less about this software, this tool, and more about a mindset shift. So how do you adjust from being that control freak DIYer, which most of us are, most business owners are, most people that start something like this, you have to be in order to get to where you currently are. And it has been working. Yep. So how do you do that moving into the hiring? And also, like we talked about, more strategies on finding that continuing that personal touch when it's not you doing the touching, which is an unfortunate way to put it, but a way to go from there. So talk about that process and starting on that road.
Well, if you're doing anything related to building a team or building a business or building a community, I think the best person that you can know is yourself. And the more you know what you're good at, what you're capable of, what you love doing, and also most importantly, to know the things that you're not very good at, the things that you don't love doing. We used to talk about kind of looking at the things that we have challenges with and kind of working to perfect them. But actually now it's more about leaning into the things that you're good at and outsourcing the things you're not that great at. Don't spend so much time. If you're really, really good at photography, don't spend so much time, trying to find somebody else to do it. Just focus on that right now and find other people who can help you with the stuff that you're not as good at. That's going to be a good step. So really look at who you are. I would say go and take some of those leadership assessments. You can literally look online and find lots of free leadership assessments. Figure out what kind of person am I when I'm working? How do I like to work? How do I operate? How do I communicate? And then so that's going to give you a good idea of who you are, what your leadership potential is. Then you can make a list of all of the different things, like all 1,000 things that you do to keep this blog running. What are all the little things, top to bottom? Now, organize those. Which ones do I absolutely love and I'm freaking kick ass at? Which ones I don't love so much, but I get it done? And which ones you're like, if I could give this job to somebody else in a second, I would do it right now. Start analyzing what are the roles that you need to pass on. So then the easiest thing to do is going to be to pass on the ones that you're not good at, you don't even like doing. And that's already going to improve your business, right? Because now you have people who are actually good at it doing that stuff, and you don't have to try to get better. So I think really looking at yourself as a leader, what you're good at, and then starting to outsource some of those other things are really critical. The other thing that I would say, and this is always, it's like the weirdest advice, but I promise you it's really, really good. I think people who have sales experience run the world, truly run the world. And this is what I mean by sales. Sales means sharing value with another person, communicating value to another person. If you can communicate value to another person effectively, you can do anything you want in the world, because sales is not just selling products. Sales is also convincing people to join your team who might be really busy right now, but would be a fantastic asset to what you're creating. Sales is finding what your customer really needs and providing that thing. Sales is convincing a partner to work with you. It's not just about selling items for money. It's about being compelling. It's about understanding people's problems and their challenges and finding solutions for those things. And so if you can start putting yourself into the mindset of, I'm not doing this stuff, I'm finding the best person for these tasks, and then I'm helping them to move into a place of doing it. That's going to get you much further, because now you're looking at this as, I'm the person who's running the business and orchestrating this thing. And I'm not the person who's actually doing the little things, so I think that's your next step. Then once you do that, then you start looking into, okay, well, actually, do I have money to hire people? Like that's, let's be honest, like that kind of stuff you have to look at too on a step-by-step basis. How much money are you bringing in per month? How much would it cost for you to bring in a little bit of help? And is that person going to be adding revenue or detracting revenue? Because, as much as my first, one of the first hires I ever brought in actually was social media. And I didn't like doing social media. I brought somebody on to do it. And then I realized that actually social media for me was not the best hire. Funny, she still works on our team. She does amazing work. She just doesn't do social media. Because what we realized was my business was too young, that the person I hired ended up taking revenue away from the business rather than adding to it. And I needed people who were adding. So then I started focusing on who's going to actually bring readers, bring customers, not that social media doesn't, but it didn't do it as directly as I needed it. Right. So looking at it from the mindset of, what positions do I need filled that are going to add to this business directly as quickly as possible, so that I can grow it, so that I can create a machine that's fueling enough revenue, enough energy, enough readership, that then we can kind of fill it out with everything else. And then taking those baby steps, right? Finding the 1 or 2 people, put them on 5, 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, whatever you can afford, working with them, being really specific on what kind of goals that you want to see, what do you want them to actually do for you? And what I mean by do for you is, how do you want them to grow that business for you? What are those revenue goals? What are those readership goals? Whatever it is. And I think once you start doing that, and once you start getting into that method of being I don't want to say manager, but being like a supervisor, being a leader, then it gets easier to take yourself out of the place of, I need to do everything.
Very much so, and very helpful. Leah actually asked a great follow-up question here.
Yeah.
She'd love recommendations for resources for growing and developing leadership skills without having been to business school. This is all very new, and a lot of the resources she's found are for brand new small business owners, which doesn't always apply or get at the skill set that you're talking about.
Ooh, that's a great question. I think I can't even tell you off the top of my head, but I can literally Google it right now and tell you. Actually, you know where you should start is there are a lot of universities that publish that. So rather than if there's a Forbes article called 11 assessments every executive should take, there's 10 leadership tools from USC that came out. So I would start there because those, I'm not talking about, tools for startups. I'm talking about tools for executives because you're an executive. You are running the operation. You're running an operation that already exists, that already has customers, that already has readers. And so you're looking for how do I work? How do I manage a team rather than, how do I start a business? You're not starting a business, you're shifting a business. So that's where I would go. And if other people have specific recommendations, I don't know if I can't see the comments anymore. So I'm like,
I know.
but throw them in the comments. Yeah, because we can all help each other. That's the really good thing about this. I personally, one of the ones that I took that changed my life. If you happen to have multiple thousands of dollars to spend, it was something that our school had paid for. It's called the Hogan Assessment, and it's it's like a super long, very detailed leadership assessment. But you will literally get on paper like the reflection of what's inside your soul, and seeing somebody reflect back to you who you are is absolutely incredible. But you don't have to spend thousands of dollars. There are all sorts of really, really good free assessments created by universities.
And I love that, the Hogan assessment too. And I want to check that out. I mean, not that I have the
So
$1,000 currently, but I do.
Come on, Mediavine. Let's do it.
Mediavine. Get on. Oh. Okay. So are you able to stay for a minute or two longer since we lost a little bit of time? Okay. I wanted to talk about when you're talking, how do you document this? How do you keep track of what's working, what's not working, and find where you need to pivot, where you need to change?
Yeah. So
social media that like you discovered for your particular business model, as opposed to a blogger, whereas if they're driving traffic from social media, that translates to ad revenue, that's making them money. That is a direct one-to-one in return on investment, not for you.
Exactly. And that's where knowing your analytics really well is going to help, right? Because if you're seeing 50% of my traffic is coming from Pinterest, and you don't think you're actually that great at Pinterest, hire a Pinterest expert. Done. You're going to increase your traffic that way. It's going to help you so much. Instagram, whatever your preferred channels are. Yes, I completely agree with you. And but you have to have the revenue built in, right? We weren't on Mediavine when I hired my first social media person. So right. The number of readers that we had did not have a direct correlation with revenue and with growth. Now you have an opportunity. So I think the other thing you want to make sure that you're doing is that you've got that funnel built. Your advertising, your email marketing, everything that you're doing, make sure that every additional reader is creating real revenue for you. And it's not just kind of indirectly related. Make sure that it's directly related, that you're calculating how many people are coming to my site, how many people are signing up for my newsletter, how many people from my newsletter are buying the thing that I'm trying to sell them in the 5th email that comes out in my newsletter series, how many of them, because then when you know that, then you're right. You know where you can plug people in and how they're going to see that. I use a lot of spreadsheets. But I would also say that, there's tons of really good, whether it's project management apps like Asana and Monday, whether it's just getting a Slack group together and, bringing in anybody who's working with you into Slack. So you're always, the thing I love about Slack too, is it makes these conversations so much more casual than if you email a bunch of people, it's very formal, but in Slack, you can say, I don't think about doing this. What do you think? Yeah. So, bringing those in, but I think to the point of understanding what the problem is that you're trying to solve, you also need to understand, again, what is that coin that I'm dropping? Where am I dropping the coin into the machine to see it grow? What am I focused on? Am I focused on, my readership because my ad revenue is the top way that I'm making money? Is it my readership because when they get into that email series, I really want them to buy that course 5 emails down?
Yep.
Is it because, everybody who signs up for my email, 20% of them are actually signing up for this program that I'm running? Whatever it is, like once you start understanding what your business model is, which sounds so basic, but it's really not. I think we're all creators of our own business models here. I think that's the thing that makes blogs really different, that there isn't just one business model. There are a lot of different possibilities. So figure out what your particular business model is, what your particular strategy is, start tracking those things, and look at it month to month. End of the month, take a few hours and analyze, what have I done, what changes have I made, how much has this increased or decreased. Take a very analytical approach, and then that's also going to help you when you're bringing in people, because everybody's afraid of firing, everyone's afraid of giving negative feedback. If you've been tracking this data and then you bring somebody in and the numbers drop, you're not a bad person saying, hey, why did the numbers drop here, what can I be doing to help you, or potentially finding a different thing for them if you need to. I think being able to look at that versus not having any of that information, not really knowing what's growing your business and what you're actually trying to focus your energy on, and then it's just about feelings.
I can't put my finger on it, but something feels wrong. It's not quite.
Yeah.
But
right.
And usually when you're getting that feeling, something feels wrong, it's usually pretty attributable directly to a metric that's not there. Yep. But it's way murkier when you're not able to identify and say, this is specific. What's happening. So Beth, I want to take a quick moment to make a couple of announcements, and then I want to hear what this process looks like moving forward. How do you continue on that road to expansion? That will be the final thought in one moment. Guys, we did it. I usually talk about the next episode on the Summer of Live, but there is no next episode because this is it. We won't be back until summer 2021, which is crazy. However, don't be sad. Teal Talk is what we are converting over to, which is our bi-monthly show that we run all year round except for the summer. We have the season 3 premiere of Teal Talk. It is Thursday, September 17th. So we are not going to be around for a week or two, but that's okay. On Thursday, September 17th, we are going to have Eric on, and we're going to talk about all of the Mediavine updates, getting us ready to move into Q4 with the bang. We're going to talk Grow.me. We're going to talk, obviously, we're going to talk about the Trellis Open Beta. So there's so much that we have to talk about, and we are excited to get that going. And then for our other episode in September, we confirmed earlier today, I'm very excited. We're going to talk about Instagram with LaShawn Wiltz. So we're excited about both of those episodes. Great things upcoming. But until that time, I want you to be having a wonderful time. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you miss any episodes, like our Facebook page, so you can stay on top of everything. And then, Beth, despite all this craziness, this has been an incredible conversation. I'm so glad we've had you, and I would like to hear how we continue this process moving forward.
So one of my best, and by the way, thank you. This has been great. And to everyone, I hope this has given you some good insight and really helped you out and given you some interesting things to think about. Maybe you haven't thought about before, or maybe you've been thinking about forever, like some of you. One of the best podcast episodes I've ever listened to, I highly recommend all of you. If you haven't listened to How I Built This, the episode with the founder of Patagonia, Yvon Chouinard, I forgot how to say his last name, is this incredible episode. I didn't know anything about his story. Anyway. And his story is he actually had fought against the growth of Patagonia for many years. So Patagonia is outdoor retailer, for any of you who don't know. And he fought against growth. He would see that the business was growing so fast, and he would say, we need to cut back on some things that we don't do. And people are always like, why are you trying to stop your business from growing? And he had this very strong belief that the slower your business grew, the slower it would go away. The faster your business grows, the faster it could also kind of come apart.
One hit wonder, flash in the pan.
Exactly. And so he believed in kind of, creating more of this mountain, where if you're doing not slow growth, but just purposeful growth,
sustainable,
then you're creating something. Yes. So he has this whole concept about building a business that lasts 100 years. And he said, you should always think about your business as, I want this business to last 100 years. Every decision I make is going to affect what this business looks like 100 years from now. How does that change the way you think about things? And I think that's a great question for us, especially in the digital space, where, God, 100 years from now, I don't know, are we just going to think things? And like our audience will all of a sudden
all androids.
Who knows? We're all androids. but it is interesting because it becomes not just about the direct business or the direct product. It's also about what materials am I using? Are those materials going to be around 100 years from now? Am I destroying the earth when I'm, working on this thing? How am I treating the people that work for me? Are they going to be lifelong, employees or people that work? You start thinking a little much bigger picture of what is this? And I think when we're talking about building something that's bigger than you, when we're talking about scale, we're challenging ourselves to move into a mindset of imagining something that will live on much longer than we will live on. And what kinds of decisions then am I making that actually will affect somebody 30, 40, 100, 1,000 years from now? And really looking at that and challenging ourselves to look at that. So that's what I want to leave you with, is don't just think about what do I want for the next year in this business. Think about, if I had the ability to have my blog last forever, for 100 years, what kinds of choices would I make now about how it runs, about how I treat my team, about what I talk about, that are going to affect that? Because it's that purposeful, systematic, structured growth that's going to keep you lasting and allow you to go on long after you've made your millions and gone on to your goat cheese farm.
Yeah. And it all ends up on a goat cheese farm. Beth, this has been so inspirational and wonderful. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And guys, you can reach Beth by all the places we put in the comments, at She's Wanderful, at Women in Travel Summit. She is the founder and told us all about her journey. Thank you guys for being here with us this summer. It's been incredible. We've had a great time. Have a great Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you in a few weeks for Teal Talk. Bye, everyone.